Yes, it is. So Chris Paschane is here. He's a human evolution strategist, he's an AI thought leader, and he's the founder of Quantum Nurturing, which is a framework designed to help men reclaim leadership, balance strength with connection, and master the competencies needed to thrive in a changing world. So we might talk today about SPCs, self-preservation competencies, about bridging science, spirituality, and personal growth to help men level up. We all need a boost, right? We all have those down days, but even if we're doing, hey, could I be doing this a little easier, or am I on the right track? We sometimes need some guidance. Mr. Chris is here to help. So, Mr. Chris, we introduced you, but what did I leave out about you? What do you have to say that just has you so focused, excited, fired up lately?
My whole thing is I'm trying to bridge science, spirituality, and strategy to help men master something that I think is out of balance, which is both competence and connection. Because I believe that real leadership has to have both to rewrite the rules of success.
I love it. And I'm very impressed with the alliterations, right? It makes it catchy, easy to remember. And so as far as where men are stuck, like what's the situation look like? Are they stuck with the negative self-talk, not goal setting, like directionless, angry, all of the above? Like when someone comes to you and they say, okay, well, this whole quantum nurturing thing, I think it can help me. What's the before picture look like? What's their current situation?
It can be a lot of different places where they're at, as you can imagine. All different people kind of, my messaging resonates with them from different angles. Some people actually do want to level up in their, because I teach 7 competencies, and constitution is one of them, which is your physical and mental constitution. Introspection is a huge one that is really lacking in men right now, and communication and connection is really lacking in men right now. Men are feeling isolated. They're feeling like their place in the world is lost. Traditional masculinity is completely changed, and people don't even know what a new version of modern masculinity should look like. I've been searching my whole life. I'm 54 years old, and I've been searching, through multiple generations that have been trying to figure it out as well. Being in the military and doing jujitsu and doing yoga and all these different things, therapy, and all my academic studies, trying to figure out, like, yeah, what should how should a man behave? What should it look like? And we're very confused, but I think I figured some things out, and it's really resonating with men, and it's really helping. And quite honestly, it's resonating with women. But there are eager learners, and there are people that are resistant to change. And we're not going to be able to help people who are resistant to change. We're not going to be able to help narcissists. I once asked AI, what's the chance of you getting through to a narcissist? And it said 10 to 15% chance at best. So there's no way we're going to, get through to the stubborn hubris, that people have. But there is a lot of answers if people are willing to listen.
Okay, so we need to listen, because if we don't listen, then we'll just stay on the same path, right? And we'll be equally frustrated a year from now as we were a year ago, or maybe even worse, right? Because as you said, times are changing, and we definitely can't go back to like the racism, the sexism, the good old days. Like it was a good time for men, but now we kind of we talk about our feelings more, right? We kind of strive for better things, but then there's definitely the worry about like the overcorrection or men being lost in the shuffle. And so we need to find our place. And it's a wonderful insight that you had right off the bat, that we need to be coachable, right? That if we're not introspective in this way, if we let pride get in the way and the arrogance, we say, oh, you know what? I'm fine. I don't have a problem. I've heard that. Or I'm frustrated, but I don't like that advice. I'll keep waiting around for my train to arrive. I mean, it's just, we need to say, hey, I've got this far. Now I need to kind of give up a little bit, just to the extent that I say, like, hey, like I need a new approach, right? I need Mr. Chris Paschane, human evolution strategist, to say, like, all right, so now that you've kind of messed up a little bit, let's get back on the right track. And so, like, what does that look like when these men say, all right, well, I'm not a narcissist and I can listen to reason? Like, what's the low hanging fruit? Where do you, out of all these areas that there could be, where do you begin your attack?
You know, um, I have, first of all, I have tests that AI helped me generate to assess all 7 competencies. So everybody comes with a certain nature, right? There's a certain soup to the nature. Evolution is designed men a certain sort of way in general, and women a certain sort of way in general. And a lot of people don't really understand all that, and that's stuff that I go into in my articles and my books and things like that. But then you have the nurturing, and the nurturing can make a woman, as we know now, just as competent as a man. In fact, women's competencies are exceeding men's right now, and so men really need to step up. And so when I talk to someone and we figure out what's going on, I'm looking for what I have. In the military, we had proficiencies. We had skill levels. We had 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 skill level. And basically, in short form, 3, 1, you didn't know anything. 3, you were like, um, you know, you just got out of tech school and you're going to start learning your job. And then you go a couple of years on the job, and then you become a 5 level, which is proficient. 7 is like, the superintendent, and 9 is like the highest level. Well, in competencies, I came up with incompetent, novice, um, advanced, no, excuse me, incompetent, novice, proficient, advanced, and master. What I'm looking for is where you're not at least proficient. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because what I realized is the SPCs are the limiting factor of success. Anybody listening to this, write that down. This is the limiting factor of success of relationships. So if you're in a relationship with someone who is incompetent or novice in communication, connection, introspection, calculation, the relationship will always be reduced to that limiting factor, because that person will stop the success there. It's the weak link in the chain. And it's the weak link in the chain if you hire that person or you partner with that person in business as well. So the individual must not be less than proficient in any competency. So I have to go to where the weakest area is. But there is a general truth, okay? The general truth is that Constitution will help you empower all of them. So if you just start exercising, start eating right, you can start working on determination. You can have energy for more calculation studies, and more ways of developing that. You can have energy for introspective conversations, and stamina for looking inward, and you can have energy for learning new healthy styles of communication and connection and all these other things. So I generally want to kind of see where we're at with Constitution. Being that I was a personal trainer to celebrities and so many people for a long time, it's an easy, quick start. But what really gets the ball rolling is connection, because men, and I work with men only now, is and for lots of great reasons, but men are actually struggling with connection. They're very isolated. Our whole lives we de-emphasized connection, and it's all about being independent, and not sharing your feelings, and and so connection and introspection go hand in hand. So they kind of are like a pair that I have to work with people right out of the gate. And I'm really good at those. I'm a master in introspection and connection and communication. So I can mentor that, not because what separates me from, people who have like their PhDs in psychology and all these things like that is that I have real world growth experience, as well as the academic studies, and as well as military studies, leadership and all these other things. Like I've lived it, and I come from poverty. My dad fed us roadkill, from when we were on welfare, when I was my biological father. And my mom married a truck driver, as my stepdad later. And we were low income, and it was the Generation X, where they just let kids do their thing, and of course I was built to be very independent and a survivor. But then I went in the military, and I just, kept the journey really kicked off there of my growth, and I think the biggest thing people are missing is they don't have a lust for growth, like a real passion for growth. It's just the opposite. Like everybody wants to already have all the answers. That's the problem with politics. That's the problem with everything, is everybody thinks they've got all the answers, and nobody wants to just like like really be interested in somebody's new perspective, and like add value to themselves with that. They want to come to the table in a competitive way. And that's where the world is right now. Everybody's competing, especially women. Women used to nurture and support men and used to give sound advice to their men as leaders. Men need to step up as chairman of the board. I'm the only body has got the balls to say this. Men need to be chairman of the board. I've been the chairman of boards, okay, as a lower ranked person in the military. So I was chairman of a total quality management committee that actually evaluated um, major decisions that had to be made. And I was the lowest ranked person on the board, but I was elected to be the chairman. So you have respect for the people on the board. You listen to the people on the board. You're as chairman of the board, you're just taking responsibility and you're caring to do the hard work. It's not about patriarchy or dictatorship or something like that. It's not about control. It's about we have the competency to do it. We have the capability to do it. We need to step up and lead because our nation is getting weaker and we're all suffering from it. We're all suffering. Families are fucked. You know,
Right.
kids are fucked. Women are unhappy. They're overwhelmed. Divorce is on the rise. And men are isolated and don't know what the fuck to do.
So we need your help. We need your new perspective. And I love your modern ideas here, right? Because I saw some well, we love LinkedIn, right? You open up LinkedIn, you get all kinds of ideas. And I saw some infographic this morning, and it was like all the things that you kind of like on one side was like a list of all the things that you think and say as like a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like, why'd you screw this up? This is your fault. And then it was like a line, and it's like, hey, instead of saying that, say like, what am I not understanding about this situation? How can I help? And it's like kind of a great reframing, right? That this idea that like how leadership is about spreading your power around, right? And like how like kind of empowering others and not just being nasty and not being negative, but being like, hey, let's work on a solution and let me own my stuff. And it's great to kind of tap into that kind of military mindset because like it seems like men respond to that really well, right? Like, hey, it's time to get toughened up. And if you're the weak link in these kind of 7 attributes, then kind of like pump things up. And so I love your message and to understand like the breakdown of it. We've mentioned a few times there's like these 7 items. And just for like the sake of completeness, can you tell us what these 7 items are that we should be focusing on?
Yeah, absolutely. First is introspection, which is just self awareness and purpose, like really understanding yourself, having the inner dialogue. It's what people should be doing when they pray, it's what they should be doing when they meditate. It is what you should be doing in therapy. It's what you should be doing with some quiet time alone. And it's what you should be doing when when you had a bad conversation. You should be looking at yourself and how you handled that conversation and how there's something called schemas have been affecting your way you looked at the way you look at the world and the certain beliefs you have about the world and how that is impacting how you feel about a certain sort of situation. Communication is about influence and connection. So the connection part of relationships and networking, and networks are like what goes into uh, communication. You have your words, but you also have your energy, and that's why they say communication is actually, you've heard people say it's like what is it, like 80-85%, body language and tone and things like that, and that
Right.
is the energy of your inside of you. I call it the divine flow. It's just my way of framing many different lenses that look at what's going on beyond the calculating scientific world. And that's why everything I do is blending science and spirituality, because I've looked deep into spirituality, deep into religions, committed deep to religions, and several of them, and I've seen the common thread. It's all about interconnectedness and how we're all interconnected. Quantum entanglement and quantum theory, all these things point to some interconnectedness that we need to be very aware of. So moving on, you got constitution. That's just physical and mental strength. It's that ability to. There's something in the body called homeostasis. It's about where everything's in balance. It's not like having huge muscles or having huge power. And people like take steroids and all these things to like think they're creating greater constitution, but in the homeless, it's probably going to have some, as you can imagine, some side effects and imbalances because it's not balanced. So you got to have the balance, and then same thing with your mental constitution. So that's why the introspection is so important. That's why the connection is so important, because that all feeds into having a good, healthy constitution, right?
Right.
Mental constitution and physical. And calculation is another competency. This is just strategic thinking. When you think about people on the spectrum, I know quite a bit about this, and I've talked to people in this field, and um, my son was diagnosed with autism, and he has no signs of autism now because of the work I've done on him. He's 13 years old, and he was diagnosed at 3 years old with autism. And really, what there's a lot of different forms of it, and people have all different stuff they'll say about it. But one of the most common ways of kind of dumbing it down is high calculation and sometimes weak, not always, but sometimes a weaker connection. And sometimes it can be high connection and high calculation, but weak communication. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it can be around different ways. But at the end of the day, I was asking AI about quantum nurturing and stuff, and it really believes that it can cure about 60 to 80% of both physical and mental disorders. And because a lot of them, as we all know, can be corrected with just good health and good mental practices, which is otherwise why go to therapy? And so this is better than therapy in a lot of ways because it is directly strengthening the core things that make you a human. These are the 7 macro things. So moving on, determination. This is grit and resilience. It is just no, and those that's fueled by really knowing your why. That's why the old saying, when the why becomes strong, the how becomes easy. So determination can be built by really. That's what I do with people. Is I help them get inside. I have had success in multiple industries and with many different types of people of different ages, um, both male and female in this, of helping them find their determination. Because when you this is a big problem, like a lot of kids they find in bad neighborhoods and stuff like this, don't succeed, is because they have a very cynical and pessimistic environment they're raised in, and they don't see the future. They don't see if they apply themselves somewhere, it can turn out well. And so you really have to get inside someone's mind and show them something that they can grab a hold of as their why. And that comes going all the way down to science and spirituality to build that, is what I've learned. You've got to get to things that are really deep for it to be really rooted and grounded in their psyche, as this is why I'm waking up this morning, is for this purpose, and that determination. And the last thing, which is usually the downfall of all successful people who have leaders who have failed, is regulation. Not being able to control emotional and impulse. Not having the impulse control and that and ability to balance your emotions. So those are the 7 competencies.
Man, I can tell that you've researched this, and I love how you've come at it from all these different angles, right? There's like your origin story about like the early struggles and the poverty. You've got the military background, you've got the academia, you've got the business side, the MBA, and it's really great to just to kind of. I know that there's no way to like fit it all into the 20 minutes, right? It's a lot just to be hit with, but it's really even I've had all sorts of thoughts here about like, oh yeah, like the emotional regulation or the constitution. Like you're preaching to the choir here, right? No one will really disagree and say like, oh, well, one of these 7, that one's not important. So I think that this is a message that men need to hear. And, we've bounced around all these different topics, right? There's AI, there's quantum entanglement, there's the self-help part. So in these final minutes of our conversation, do you think, is there something that, like, is there a message men really need to hear right now? Is there a question that I should be asking you about men's personal development that I should be asking? I just don't know to ask you.
Well, the thing that's popping in my brain is, what's the biggest thing missing for men right now? And it really is connection. It's very clear. All the data knows it. AI knows it. People are writing about it. Men are isolated, and they're struggling to figure out, like, you know we're born leaders, but you have to earn that. You have to earn that. I want to stress that you don't get to inherit leadership just because you got something dangling between your legs. You know what I mean? You need to work for that. You need to develop your competencies and be worthy of that. But men have lost hope because there's all this toxic masculinity and mansplaining and there's this growth of like women dominance. There's this culture of victim supremacy that is suppressing men as well. And, cancel culture, all these things that are feeding into this loop of problems for men to assert themselves um, and to, have that self-esteem and that confidence that they need. And so what I do is I try to build that confidence and that clarity into men, because when you're sure of something and it's grounded on real solid logic, and most important, when you can connect and introspect and come to the same truth, that's where you're going to be powerful. And that's where I'm at.
And this is powerful stuff. And I love hearing about this. And I can, so, I mean, my brain is just going in like 5 different directions. And so I love this idea that men need connection, right? And you think like, especially well, I'm just going to, I'll join the military, I'll join the army. But then what do? They put you in as part of a unit, right? You work with others. Oh, I'm so independent. But then say you like build a business, well, you need to partner up with people. So for many, it can be a rude awakening, can't it? That it's like, well, you think that you can do it all yourself, but you need a team, you need a support system, you need mentors, you need coaches, you need peers. And it's like, well, figure that out now early or figure it out the hard way. And you're kind of putting yourself through all this struggle and stress that you don't need to do. And I just keep thinking of what you said near the beginning of our conversation here, Chris, where you said that like men aren't naturally like gravitating towards the nurturing, right? And I mean, nurturing, like it's like, what are we doing here? We're nurturing people on this podcast episode who need help, and it's like it's not solved overnight. It's not solved instantly. You don't just jam it in or shoot the gun, right? It's like some of these things take time, and it definitely helps to get broken out of our own thinking and say, well, hey, the world is changing, and it's not the Middle Ages where if you didn't like someone, you just kind of stab them with a sword. We need to kind of behave in a more modern way and deal with our feelings and solve problems in a proper way and get along with society and achieve things and be leaders and all those other things that goes along with it. And so if someone says, all right, well, I can relate to your 7 principles here, Chris, and I can relate to the struggles that you said and the actions I need to take. So how does someone find out more about you? Where are some like kind of next steps, resources? What should they do after listening to our podcast?
Well, I'd say the first thing they need to do is maybe read my book, Journey to Mastery, because in there is a deep dive of go to the website journeytomastery.com, and that's journey and then the number 2 mastery.com. And reach out to me to talk about what they're trying to focus on, because at the end of the day, most people want to improve relationships, they want to level up and work, they want to get more fit. And I just want to go back to you were talking when we were talking about connection is absolutely community connection and things like that, but it's actually what I call connecting to the divine flow. And it's understanding that we're all interconnected and really coming to that truth that we're all really interconnected. And when you come to that truth, it's so much then you're not isolated anymore, number one, because you realize you're not in this alone. And number two, it's so much easier to interact and care. I studied ethics in college, and one of the things you study in ethics is about how you have to consider all stakeholders. And for people who haven't studied ethics, they may not understand this. You probably know this, but businesses, corporations, they focus on, as people would say, shareholders. But what they teach, and when you're, I was working my MBA program in entrepreneurship, is how to consider all stakeholders. That's like not just the executives, but the managers and the lower employees, the customers, the planet, the community outside. When you realize that that all these people are going to be affected by certain decisions, like in the military, you have to make decisions like I'm watching the Black Hawk Down documentary right now, and I served during Somalia time. I didn't go to Somalia, but I actually served at a base that sent aircrafts over there during that time, and I was very aware of everything going on. And the thing about when I look at that situation is, they had to send troops in, like this Delta Force, for example, and people in, and the goal is it's supposed to be for a greater good, right? So they had to make an ethical decision. Like, I might put these men's lives at risk for a greater purpose, right? That's a really hard ethical decision making, man. I mean, that's really hard, and we have to care like that. We have to really care about who we're impacting. And corporations don't do that. They just focus on profits and the shareholders and their own, just profits, And so what connection is being connected to the stakeholders that you're going to impact, like caring about your decisions, balancing the calculations of profit and strengthening your company and becoming a leader in your industry and yada yada, while understanding the principles of abundance means it's unlimited. We don't have to hoard it all. We can, there's enough to go around, so we don't have to screw over other people to elevate ourselves. And right now there's a lot of stuff going on in politics and everywhere else where it always has been, where people are making poor ethical decisions. So when I talk about connection, it's about getting connected to something that's outside the brain. You have some sort of instincts built in you. People call it the heart. People call it the consciousness. People call it the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost, or the soul, or whatever you want to call it. They're just words. At the end of the day, everybody everywhere, bro, throughout history has been aware there's something before there was science. Before there was the written word. We've always known there's something going on bigger than us, and we've all tried our best to connect to that source. And it's my belief that every person that everybody worships is just somebody who connected to that source, who's a good communicator and a decent calculator and a strong connector and a strong introspector, who was able to give that to the world, and what I'm trying to do is say, look, we all can connect to that. And the higher you elevate your SPCs, the more you will be able to have real power in this world in a way that serves the world, serves the community, serves you, because you'll never be more fulfilled in life than when serving other people.
I love it. Well, this is a great message that we need to hear, right? That it needs to be more than just you. You need to not be selfish, not be trapped in your own thinking. I mean, just think about, say you're sitting in a room with nothing to do, right? No TV, no phone, just sitting there. It's torture, right? It's the most boring thing ever versus like what we're doing here, right? You talk to someone else, you get some outside ideas, you get some fresh perspectives, you examine the situation, not just in how it serves you, but how it serves the other levels of the group. You think about your higher power. I mean, we definitely need to be thinking about this stuff, Mr. Chris. And the way that we can do that, because we're on a podcast, there's only so much time, right? And a podcast is kind of that first level of awareness where you get a little bit of a tease. You say, I know that I need to be working on some of this stuff. And I got a collection of ideas, but a collection like that, it's not a plan, right? It's not a step-by-step process. You don't have someone like Chris saying, hey, here's what you need to do. So to take that next step, Chris gave us two resources here. Resource number one is the book Journey to Mastery on Amazon. You just search Journey number 2 Mastery. It's on Kindle, it's on paperback, and that's where Chris delves into those SPCs he's mentioning: introspection, communication, connection, constitution, determination, calculation, and regulation, and how those are important and those strategies for improvement. And then we said that the website is journey number 2 mastery.com, where you can elevate performance and fulfillment, blending values driven guidance, innovation, strategic coaching, and a proven track record in elevating productivity and success for CEOs, staff, and diverse, ambitious clients. I love just your interconnectedness of your ideas here, Chris. Like you say how with quantum entanglement, it's all connected, right? Spirituality, all connected. Your organization, it's all connected. AI, that's the most connected thing there is, right? They scraped the
Right.
whole internet and they looked how words are all interrelated. It's all the interconnectedness. And so
Yeah.
we can kind of ignore that message to our detriment, to our peril, or say, hey, you know, Chris has some great ideas and I need to have this kind of complete map, this blueprint to get me to where I want to go. That way I can really just be someone that's in control of my life, right? Where I happen to life and life doesn't happen to me. And so those resources are Journey to Mastery, the book, and Journey number 2, mastery.com. You can go there. You can book that consultation to begin your transformation, unlock your potential. And before I let you go, Chris, it's the scary part of the show where I try to put you on the spot and I ask for a fun quote or lesson that has served you in business and in life. So, what do you have for me as far as a fun quote or lesson?
The most powerful men in history didn't just play the game, they rewrote the rules. So stop waiting for permission to lead. Build yourself into the man the world can't ignore.
Very nice. Very inspiring, Mr. Chris. Well, I appreciate you sharing this message. You can find Chris on LinkedIn at Chris Paschane. You can find him on Instagram at Your Journey Number 2 Mastery, Facebook on Chris.Paschane, and X J2M with Chris. So journey2mastery.com. You'll find a bunch of blog posts, explanations about all of these SPCs. You'll find a link to the book. And I appreciate you very much, Chris, for like giving us like so many ideas, right? So much to chew on, so much to do. I love your message and I appreciate you coming by and sharing it.
Thanks, Robert. This has been awesome. I really appreciate you inviting